Hello guys, welcome back to another Android app development tutorial. In this video here I am going to show you how a dialog communicate with its host activity or host fragment. So here we have a button for display the dialog. So here we have a string array called toppings. We are going to display a dialog with the checkboxes. So we can create a separate class for the dialog. I name it as my dialog. And this class extends dialog fragment. Override the method called onCreateDialog. So first we can get the string array. So here I create an array called toppings. Get the array from the strings.xml. Now create some variables for array dialog builder. Now we can set title for the dialog. Pick your toppings. Now we can add the items using the set multi-choice items method as the array. Now specify the click listener. So now we have to save the user selection. For that, here I am going to create a string array called selection. Now we can add the selection. If the item is selected, in that case we add that item to the array list called the selection. If the user unselect an item, we have to remove the item from the array. So in that case we have to remove it from the string array. Okay. So now we can specify positive and negative button for the dialog. So here is the positive button. Now specify a negative button. Finally, we have to return dialog from this method. So call the create method on the builder object. So now we can display the dialog. So create an object of the dialog fragment class. Now call the show method on it. Okay, so now the dialog is ready. We can check it. So run the project. Okay, now here the project available. So here we have a dialog with the list of items with the checkboxes. Okay, the dialog working fine. So now here I am going to add a text view to the main activity layout file. We are going to display the user selection using this text view. That means the dialog need to communicate with this main activity. So change the ID of the text view into txt toppings. So in order to establish communication between dialog and activity, we have to use some interface. So here I create some interface inside the dialog fragment class called topping selection listener, and here I define some abstract method called on toppings selected with one parameter is a list that contain the user selection. Okay, so now create an instance of that interface. So now we can initialize that instance using the onAttach method of the fragment. So create some variables for activity. So convert that one into activity. So now we can initialize that interface instance. So in order to make sure that the activity must implement the method, use a try catch block here. Here it is class cast exception. Throw new class cast exception. The activity must implement the interface methods. So must implement this interface methods. Okay. So now go to main activity. The main activity implement that interface. So implement the method. So now the fragment can communicate with this method. So when user click the positive button, we have to pass the selection to the activity. So now this selection available on this method using this list. So now we can display it on the text view. So create variables for text view. Now initialize the text view. Okay, now we can display the user selection on the text view. So create a variable called the selection. Now retrieve each item from the list and display it on the text view. So selection is equal to selection and add a new line. and finally display it. So text review.set text and display the items. Okay, now we can test it. So run the project. So here the project available, so run it. So here I made some selection. I select all the items. So now the item available on the main activity. Now make another selection. I remove one item. Now click OK. So now the selection available. So this is how a dialog communicate with the is host activity or host fragment. Thank you for watching. See you in the next episode.